The floorboards were ice against my heels, a sharp, freezing contrast to the suffocating heat radiating from my chest. I watched my reflection in the bathroom mirror, but it felt like looking at a stranger through a dirty window. The pain wasn't a headache or a cramp, it was alive. It was that familiar jagged pressure, those dry branches tightening around my heart, clicking together with every pulse. Click, click. I could almost hear them snapping. I tried to take a deep breath, but the branches wouldn't give. They just squeezed harder, reminding me that I was still tethered to a life. That felt several sizes too small. I reached for the concealer. Thwack! A rhythmic sound from the hallway. Leo was definitely out of bed now. I could hear his muffled roar and the dragging of a plastic bin. Then, the soft clink of a spoon against a bowl. Lily was already at the cereal. I hated that my first instinct wasn't sweet children, but logistics. I was a project manager of a life I never applied for. Breakfast? Check. Lunchboxes? Check. Sanity? Well, that is error 404. I leaned into the mirror, dragging the lipstick across my mouth. The red was too bright, too hopeful. It looked like a lie painted on a ghost. I practiced the face, the one that says, "I'm fine, just a little tired." That answer being the universal code for "I'm drowning." But I don't want to ruin your morning. As I walked into the kitchen, Leo tackled my knees. "Mama." T-Rex lost his arm. The branches in my chest cinched tight. I looked down at his messy hair and felt that terrifying, anchoring love. He was my world. But today, the world weighed 1,000 tons. I knelt, my joints feeling like they were filled with sand, and searched for the plastic limb. "We'll find it, baby." Lily looked up from her granola, her eyes scanning me with that analytical, 8 going on 30 gaze. She saw the mask slipping. I knew she did. I forced a wink and turned toward the coffee maker, my hands trembling. I thought about the office, the fluorescent lights that hummed at a frequency that made my teeth ache, the spreadsheets, the endless rows of numbers that meant absolutely nothing to anyone's soul. Each entry was a second of my life traded for a paycheck. Life lost equals boredom times keystrokes. The math was simple, and the result was always 0. I grabbed my keys, the metal cold and heavy in my palm. The normal person mask was strapped on tight now. I was ready to go to the logistics firm, to enter the data, to be the mother, to be the employee, to be the machine. But as I reached for the doorknob, I felt one of those branches inside me finally splinter. It didn't break away. It just pierced deeper. I wasn't just waiting for the branches to snap anymore. I was starting to realize that if they didn't, I might.
The fluorescent lights hummed, a low, aggressive vibration that skipped across my skin like a static shock. 8:58 a.m. I made it. But I felt like a marathon runner who had collapsed an inch past the finish line. I sat at my desk, my chest still heaving from the sprint. I could feel a damp strand of hair plastered to my forehead, a mocking reminder that while the rest of the world navigated their mornings in climate-controlled bubbles, I was out there battling the elements. I didn't even have to look left to know Olivia was there. I could smell her, a crisp, expensive scent that reminded me of organized closets and high credit scores. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her adjust her succulent. It looked smug. Even the plant seemed to have its life together more than I did. Olivia didn't just work. She curated her existence. To my right, Cledwin was already a machine. Tap, 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 slide. The rhythmic clicking of his mechanical keyboard was the soundtrack to my stagnation. He didn't have branches around his heart. He probably had a cooling fan and a motherboard. I envied him. To Cledwin, this wasn't a soul-crushing void. It was just a transaction. I looked at my own monitor. The black glass reflected a pale, tired version of me. Purpose equals 0. The math never lied. Then I felt a gaze from down the row. I looked up, and there was Sarah. She didn't give me the girl boss nod or the pitying smile. She just tilted her head, her eyes scanning my disheveled state with the clinical precision of a war medic. "Coffee?" her expression asked. For a heartbeat, the branches loosened. Sarah was the only person in this building who knew that my normal person mask was held together by spit and prayer. She didn't ask me to fix it. She just offered to sit in the ruins with me. I looked back at the screen. The logistics data began to populate. Thousands of rows of meaningless destinations. Shipment 40592 arrived. Shipment 99201 in transit. Lost. I reached for my mouse, but my hand felt like it weighed 50 pounds. The mask was itching now, the edges peeling away under the heat of the office lights. Every "good morning" that echoed in the distance felt like a pebble thrown at a window that was already cracked. I wanted to get up. I wanted to follow Sarah and let the caffeine numb the jagged edges of the pain. But Cledwyn's metronome typing reminded me of the mortgage, the T-Rex with the missing arm, and the school checklist. I placed my fingers on the home row. I wasn't a person today. I was a shipment in transit, moved by forces I couldn't control, headed toward a destination I didn't choose.
Before I could even click into my first spreadsheet, Mr. Davison rounded the corner. He was the department manager, the picture of a contented, typical family man, and the most reliable source of my Monday morning bile.
"Mary Jane, Livy, Cledwyn, good morning, girls and boy,"
He boomed, his voice carrying the relaxed authority of someone whose only stress was deciding which golf course had the best greens. He pulled up a spare chair, uninvited, wedging himself between Olivia and Cledwyn.
"I just wanted to share the good news. My girl, she's in Tokyo this week. Corporate law, you know. She just got handed the account for that huge Japanese firm we courted last quarter. She's moving up."
I forced my normal person mask to hold its shape. Davison's daughter was a corporate ghost who haunted this office through his stories. A never-ending, all-expenses-paid global tour of success.
"You know, she sent a wire transfer again this month. A big one. Just because she wants me to enjoy my retirement. Bless her heart. Kids these days."
Inside, I felt a sharp lash of jealousy. Every financial coach on YouTube told me to visualize abundance, but it's hard to manifest wealth when your boss is sitting 3 feet away, physically blocking your view of it with his daughter's bank balance. Why can't I have that life? Why am I the one struggling to buy dinosaur pajamas, while his daughter is buying him a retirement? "That's wonderful, Mr. Davison," Olivia chirped. Her sincerity was as polished as her desk. Cledwyn didn't even look up. His fingers flew over the number pad, a rapid-fire attempt to drown out the boast with the sound of sheer productivity. He shot a sideways glance at me, a sharp, cynical look that said, "See, this is the trap. Don't listen to the noise." Davison finally drifted away, satisfied with his morning broadcast. I watched him go, the pain in my chest tightening another notch. It was hard to believe in more, when the world kept reminding me I was currently less. At least I had Cledwyn. My brother in arms, hunkered down in the trenches beside me. I didn't dare interrupt Cledwyn when he was in the zone. I just watched the blur of his fingers, finding a small, silent comfort in his rhythm. Cleds was a machine of discipline, building his career like a slow-motion escape tunnel. He didn't share my daydreams of a rich savior, whisking me away from the logistics firm. To Cleds, marriage was just an unnecessary complication, something that cluttered the balance sheet. Purpose is in the paycheck, MJ. That's what he'd tell me whenever I sighed about wanting more. We were the classic dynamic, the dreamer and the realist.
But we were like siblings who only truly stopped bickering when we united against a common enemy. Georgie. Georgie was our senior, the resident drama king, a man who lived to curate and weaponize everyone's business. In my mind, Georgie was the office snitch, always scurrying to the bigger bosses with concerns that just happened to make him look like the only person who knew what was going on. Mr. Know-It-All. The self-appointed gatekeeper of the cubicle farm. Georgie hadn't arrived yet. He usually preferred to make a grand, late entrance, but the mere thought of his smug face was enough to bring a faint, unifying smirk to my lips. I caught Cleds's eye for a split second. He didn't smile, but the tightening of his jaw said he was thinking the exact same thing. The calm before the Georgie storm was the only peace we ever got. I opened the logistics software. The blue light of a monitor washed over me, but my fingers, they just hovered over the home row. I wasn't ready for the data. I needed my morning dose of commiseration first. I glanced at Cledwin. He was a statue of focus, deep in the Durban routing, his eyes tracking columns of numbers with predatory intent. I gave a short, discreet signal, the office equivalent of a secret knock. Cleds didn't move his head, but his eyes flicked toward me. Go ahead, spill it. So, the status report from the home front? Cledwin finally pulled his hands from the keyboard and leaned against the gray partition. A wry smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. This was our ritual. How was the awakening, Mary Jane? Did the prince arrive on the 6:15 bus to sweep you away? I cast my gaze toward the flickering fluorescent lights. Worse. The alarm blared, and I spent 10 minutes bargaining with the universe. I told God I was getting more agitated by the second. I said, I just want my husband to walk in and retire me. I'm done. And what was the divine response, sister? The response was the sound of Leo thumping around for a plastic T-Rex, and the cold touch of the floorboards reminding me that the bills are still here, and the bridge to this monotonous life must remain firmly unburnt. The universe is clearly prioritizing logistics over fairy tales. Cled shook his head. You have a gift, MJ. You really do. The drama of it all is almost enough to make data entry look like Shakespeare. He paused, his voice turning into that of the realist. But you know my mantra. Since the king is obviously stuck in customs, you have to find power in the mundane. Don't let the life you want stop you from being effective in the life you have. Now get in there and make the numbers obey you. He turned back to his screen. The window of vulnerability was closed. The machine was back online. I stared at the screen. The blue ERP system was waiting. I promised myself, since the husband hasn't arrived yet, I must manage with what I have. My job. The audit is next Thursday. I'm already procrastinating. I should start the Q3 report, I thought. The job is the only solid thing right now. My hands moved, but not to the audit file. They moved to the browser. Just 10 minutes. A palate cleanser. I opened the app. I broke my promise immediately. At Wanderlux, there was Anya, sipping a vibrant green matcha latte in a cream-colored cashmere sweater. She was perched in a first-class window seat, soaring over the Alps, manifesting peace and abundance before landing in Milan. Manifesting, I scoffed. I'm manifesting the Q3 inventory discrepancy report so I don't lose my rent money. Then came the final blow, a video of Anya laughing with a handsome, smiling man feeding her a piece of fruit. Grateful for this partnership. Couldn't do this life without my king. My stomach twisted. That was it. The missing piece. The king. I didn't want the matcha. I wanted the support that allowed her to choose the matcha. I wanted the liberation from this windowless room. I lowered the screen. 10 minutes. That's all it took for a mental escape to turn into a full-blown existential crisis. The audit. The audit, the audit, the audit. The quiet didn't last. Georgie, the drama king, reappeared from the coffee machine. He skirted my desk and went straight to Olivia. "Olivia, darling, do you have a moment? I need a word of advice, human to human." "Of course, Georgie. What is it?" "It's Christmas. This year, it's the Marshalls. They are not normal, Olivia. My partner's father collects taxidermied woodland creatures. His mother communicates exclusively through riddles and interpretive dance. I don't know how I'm going to survive 4 days without a proper inventory or a set of clear instructions." I froze. The name, Georgie. The name, George. The constant mocking figure of authority in my life. His voice became a low, persistent drone. My mind started to slip, searching for an escape that didn't involve spreadsheets or taxidermied squirrels. The ballroom fantasy. I wasn't in the cubicle anymore. I was Queen Charlotte. The office noise dissolved into the echoing stillness of a grand gilded ballroom. I stood rigid. My silk gown was a magnificent, suffocating cage, my dark skin shimmering against the historical opulence. And there he was, King George, not the fussy drama king Georgie from the office, but a handsome, troubled man with fire in his eyes. We were arguing. Our confrontation was raw, electric. "Do you love me?" I demanded. It was the same question I whispered to my popcorn ceiling every morning. Does anyone love me enough to save me? George stopped his pacing. The royal mask fractured. He looked at me, truly looked at me. "I love you. I love you from the moment I first saw you, a terrified stranger in a carriage." He took a step toward me, closing the impossible distance between fantasy and reality. "And you, Charlotte, you bring light into my world. You are my only anchor, my only truth." The feeling that washed over me, to be seen, to be essential, to be the light, was more potent than any sip of matcha or first-class ticket. It was worth every sacrifice. It was worth every minute of data entry. The music cuts out instantly. I snapped back to the beige reality of the cubicle island. Georgie was still complaining. His voice sounded tinny, distant. "I just need a strategy. I need a process to cope with their lack of process." I blinked, slowly tucking my Queen Charlotte intensity back into its cage. I looked at Cledwin. His shoulder was shaking slightly, his laughter muffled by his hand. He shot me a look that said, "See? Everyone has their own Q3 discrepancy report." The fantasy was over. Everyone is hiding a disaster, I thought. Brenda had stolen inventory. Georgie had terrifying taxidermied in-laws. I was just the only one whose king lived solely in a television universe. I turned back to my report. The fear of my own life hadn't lessened, but the fear of others' judgment had. 9:05 a.m. Time to find the flow.